Hey y'all, what is up? Keysby here. So today I want to do something a little bit different and address something that I've been seeing a lot of lately, and that is frustration from players looking to make the jump from casual to competitive play. I totally get it. Yu-Gi-Oh can run the gamut from mildly annoying to why do I do this to myself? So I want to talk about a few things that can help you improve on a base level and help you not be down on yourself if you find yourself in a rut. Before we go into it, it would be super helpful to the channel if you could leave a like on this video and subscribe for even more. So just to restate, because this really is the main takeaway of this video, we're trying to keep this uplifting but realistic, and I want for this to really, if nothing else, help anyone frustrated with the game understand that there are factors out of their control that aren't reflections of their own skill at the game. I want to keep this conversation very high level without going too specific into anything and really highlight some of the points I've seen where people are getting frustrated. There are going to be aspects of the game that, like I said, are out of your control, be it prices, power creep, luck, time, etc., and you should never be down on yourself for ending up on the wrong side of any of those. What is in your control is your mindset. If you're open to advice and learning, if you're being realistic about what you're playing and not overly buying into hype. At the end of the day, it's a game, and you should be enjoying yourself, but really consider what it is about the game that you enjoy. Is it playing whatever your favorite deck and cards are? That's great and 100% valid, but just understand that sometimes what you like isn't what's winning. If it is, awesome, but if it isn't, just have that in mind. Or is what you're after really being competitive and topping in larger events? Well, understand that the trade-off there may be having to cut some cards you like or having to play a different deck altogether. I know it sounds repetitive, but I really want to help you hit a mindset where if you are frustrated at anything with the game, at the very least, you aren't targeting that frustration at yourself. It's a fair frustration that your favorite deck maybe can't compete, but on that same token, you can't really blame someone else for rolling up with a tier 1 deck. This game is something different to everyone who plays it, and you can't expect everyone else to look at it the same way. So first and foremost, I want to say, if you're losing games, don't be down on yourself. All that means is that you have room to get better, and that's always great. No one is ever perfect, and the moment that someone thinks they are is the moment they stop improving. So don't think of it as a loss. Think of it as a chance to look back at the game and see what you could have improved. Mistakes are always opportunities for improvement. So as much as a lost game can suck, try saving a replay of it if you can and seeing what you could do next time instead. And you know what? It's a game where y'all shuffle a deck of cards into a random order before you start. There's just some bad luck that no amount of skill can overcome. Alrighty, so let's talk about deck choice. Again, I want to keep this all at a very high level and not delve too deep into play X or Y. I'm all about playing whatever y'all want to play. Let's get that out of the way. But that comes with a caveat. If you really want to start playing on a more competitive level, you have to accept that certain decks and cards are just better than others. My favorite deck right now, if not of all time, is War Rocks. Now, I adore War Rocks, but realistically, I know that I can go into a game, play perfectly, and still get, for lack of a better word, rocked. Does that stop me from playing them? Absolutely not. Does it bother me when I lose? Unless I did something wrong that I could have done better? Nope, because I know I did everything I could and I have a very realistic take on my deck ceiling. And I totally get it. It sucks when you have a deck that you really like or a favorite card and you get told, hey, maybe don't play this. And that's going to be a choice you have to make. Optimize for competitive play or play what you want exactly how you want to. But to bring it back, don't take your deck's can or can'ts as a marker for your own skill level. Like I mentioned, there's just some decks that are objectively better than others or more consistent. But the key takeaway here should be, play whatever you want, but understand that there may be a trade-off between what you like and what's going to be competitively viable. And really, to be realistic about the ceiling on what you're playing. So, on the topic of deck and card choices, let's talk about not overly buying into hype. The irony here is I'm going to be doing a deck profile for Warrock soon, but I really plan on being very realistic with the results you'll probably see with the deck and not making it out to be something that it isn't. It is so cool when you see someone top with a deck you love that, by all accounts, should not be topping events. Funny enough, while scripting this very video, Warrock's at a top slot in an OCG event. Or maybe you saw a profile getting some hype for a deck that most people had written off that you really like. So you go out, build it, and it doesn't go quite as well as everything led you to believe it would. And that can really be a huge downer. You spent all that time, energy, and maybe even money building and learning this deck only for it not to perform as well as it should have. And that's why you really need to look at stuff like that with a very critical lens. Sometimes people straight up get lucky at events, or maybe the event was smaller than the reporting led you to believe, or they played a very specific meta call for that exact snapshot in time, or there's just a fundamental difference between TCG and OCG's ban lists that let a deck perform. Speaking of, when you're playing Warrock with a fair amount of Go Second staples, Max C at 3 definitely helps to see those cards more often. Generally speaking, something is meta for a reason, and if something is normally considered to be a lower tier deck, there's a reason, unfortunately. And seeing a list that is hyping itself to make a tier 1 deck out of a lower tier deck can be really awesome, but it can also build unrealistic expectations, which can lead to disappointment and frustration. So to bring it back, just be wary of something that seems like unwarranted hype, and again, really be realistic about the ceiling of the deck you're playing, and to really restate it, do not equate your deck's ceiling with your own skill at the game. Because again, you can play a lower tier deck perfectly and still get outdone purely by a difference in deck strength. And at that point, that's not on you if you're being realistic about it. And I don't want this to come off as better decks always win, because Rogue exists for a reason. But Rogue decks don't win purely because they're Rogue. Rogue decks win because they're addressing a blind spot in the meta. And to be real about it, they're significantly harder to play because they not only require knowing that specific deck very well, but because of the nature of what they are, they do require much more knowledge of the current meta and format to really be effective. Playing Rogue decks can be a lot of fun, and it's really fulfilling to win with them, but just understand what you're getting into bringing one to the table, and don't expect to take wins with it just by virtue of it being Rogue. Your wins will come from having a lot of practice and learning about how to counter what's already out there. This part's going to be a little bit shorter, but speaking of building a deck, this game can be unfairly expensive. And it sucks when you really need Ash Blossom to take on Despia this format. You can insert whatever expensive hand trap is needed for whatever format you're listening to this during. And Ash right now is a $20 common. And it really doesn't help when you keep hearing people talking about how you should have gotten it earlier, etc. You're not a psychic. Maybe you just didn't need Ash at the time when it was easier to come by, and then by the time you did, it was too late. It happens. Don't blame yourself for it. The game changes as time goes on. Cards go in and out of fashion, and it sucks that when something is good, it can get expensive. Don't take your budget for the game as something that means you're bad at it. It's a game, and life comes first. That's not a problem with you that cards can get crazy expensive, more just how the secondary market works. It's just an unfortunate reality with card games that being price gated out can happen, but again, that's not a reflection on yourself. So really something that I want to hone in on is not taking frustrations with the game that are out of your control, how good something is, how expensive, etc., as shots against yourself. What you do have complete control over is how you take advice and criticism. I'm going to open with this. I'm talking about productive advice and constructive criticism, because I've seen some quote-unquote advice that more just comes off as someone telling someone they suck, and that's not cool, and it doesn't help anyone, and you know what? You're right to be annoyed at whoever says stuff like that. More what I'm talking about is hear people out when they are genuinely trying to help or point something out. Something cool about trying to move to a more competitive, higher tier deck is that more people are playing and experimenting with it. So the pool of advice or things that have been tried is bigger. Or maybe you're not doing well with a certain deck. You might just be told that it's not viable, this format. Don't take stuff like that personally. Again, there's a difference between someone being a dick and someone genuinely trying to help, and that line is usually pretty easy to see. So if someone really is trying to help you out, don't take it personally when they point something like that out. I've seen it play out where someone is playing something that really just can't keep up, and when being told that, they get very defensive about it. Once again, play whatever you want to play, for sure. It's a game. It's meant to be fun. But you still do have to be realistic about the ceiling on a deck if you're trying to move to a more competitive landscape, and you may just have to accept that what you're currently playing isn't the move. And that's not your fault. You can build something as optimally as possible and then play it perfectly, and it can still fall flat. You didn't design the cards, and it's not anything wrong with what you did or are doing at that point. It's just the reality of a game with a constantly evolving metagame. What is in your control is what you do when confronted with that information. You can take it and try to apply it, or just understand that what you're playing isn't going to be doing you any favors as you play. At the end of the day too, if you really aren't enjoying the game, take a break from it. Sometimes a bit of time really helps, speaking as someone who left the game in Teledad format up until about 2017. There were just a lot of factors at the time preventing me from enjoying the game the way I wanted to, so I stopped for a long while. I'm not saying your break should be as long as mine, I more meant like a few weeks or something, but the point being, sometimes a little time away from something can really improve how you enjoy it. Anyway, I really hope this helps out making the transition to more competitive play a little smoother, or at the very least showing you that some of what you might be frustrated with at the moment isn't your fault and you shouldn't be down on yourself for it. Like I said, and I can't state this enough, it's a game, we're here to have fun, and, address what that fun means to you. As always, have a good one, and I'll catch you all later.